Stephon Castle may have just had the most eventful all-star weekend of any NBA player. From going toe-to-toe with Mac McClung in the dunk contest to hitting a game winner and winning MVP of the Rising Stars, Castle is really starting to make a name for himself. Well, if he hadn't done that already, because as things currently stand, he's a pretty clear favorite for Rookie of the Year, and looks like he may just be a longtime running mate of Victor Wembanyama. But just how good is he right now? Where can he improve? And what does his ceiling look like? The first thing a lot of people look at when evaluating players is their scoring volume and efficiency. And it's true, these are two of the most important factors in gauging someone's offense. But time and time again, we're proven that for rookie guards, more times than not, it's completely irrelevant, as it's really hard to come into the NBA and be immediately productive. On the season, Castle's only averaging 12.9 points a game on a measly 51.5% true shooting, and at face value that looks like poor scoring. However, what I like to look for in rookie guards is progression, and this has really been a tale of two seasons for him. In the first 36 games of his career, Castle was averaging 10.7 points while shooting 46% from 2 and just over 25% from 3. He was getting to the line 3 times a game, making 70% of those, for an overall true shooting percentage of 47.4. In the 15 games he's played since then, so the last month of basketball, he's averaged 18 points a game while shooting 54% from 2 and 36.5% from 3. He's up to 4.5 free throw attempts and 78%, which actually has him above league average efficiency at 58.6% true shooting. So while his season averages don't do him justice, I do think he's already developed into a productive offensive player. His standout trait on the court is his explosive athleticism, which really shows up in the open floor. He's constantly looking for opportunities to get out and run, where he's got the verticality to turn any fast break into a highlight. So when he's streaking alongside a ball handler in transition, he's a guy who the defense has to pay attention to. But it isn't just assisted buckets that make him dangerous. When playing with pace, he's also a threat to create his own shot. Not only is he big and fast, he's lengthy and really knows how to use those long strides to create angles. You'll very commonly see him throw defenders off balance with sharp misdirection steps, leaving him with easy openings at the rim. His go-to move is this pound dribble in one direction, only to accelerate while gathering in the opposite direction, and he's able to cover a ton of ground. He can also use this move going to either his left or right, and if a defender tries to attack the ball with a reach, he'll gather up through the arm for a foul call. As a result, when pushing pace, he's a guy who often draws extra help to the paint, and he's a very capable passer, so he'll punish the defense. And in the event that his own defender is able to cut him off, he pairs that speed with a unique ability to stop on a dime, which then opens up so much more for him. The way he changes speeds on a whim like this is also what makes him dangerous as a driver in the half court. He's got elite start and stop athleticism, so he's constantly shifting his momentum with different sets of moves to throw his defender off balance and get the step. Just look at this play. They run an action for him to turn the corner with speed, and when he gets cut off, he pauses to lull his defender to sleep before immediately starting another drive. You'll often see him throw multiple drives into the same attack like this. Here's another one where he starts a drive, pauses, then drives again to set up a big time finish. Of course, this all starts with the initial burst of speed, and Castle's got one of the best first steps in the league, so he'll use his handle to weaponize that first step. One of his go-tos is this hanging left-hand hesitation, and if that defender doesn't jump into the lane, he's exploding on a drive to the rim. Another go-to of his is this size-up where he'll go between his legs to the left, then immediately cross back to his right while accelerating, and then you see those elite breaks as he shuts down all of his momentum. That deceleration is such an awesome attribute to have. If he ever gets a defender on his hip or gets cut off near the basket, he's able to throw off their timing with those slow and exaggerated steps. With that said, I do think he's got some limitations as a lead ball handler. He doesn't have the tightest handle in the world, which often leaves him vulnerable to aggressive pressure, and it limits the different ways in which he can set up his drives, as he not only struggles to dribble through traffic, he's also prone to losing the ball. However, those creative gathers and long strides do help mitigate some of the issues. Like on this play, he goes to that signature tween cross, but loses the ball for a second and ends up in a pretty awkward position, only to regather the ball and step through a small gap on his way to a layup. So even though the handle causes some concerns, he's still a guy who's able to consistently beat his defender. And like I said earlier, he's a skilled enough passer to counter any help. He's capable of making some pretty impressive finds. Here's one where he starts a drive and recognizes that the low man is creeping over to protect the rim, so he uses that leaping ability to create an angle over the top, leading to an easy corner three. I also think he's great at countering help in situations where a rim protector steps up to him, most notably with the lob. And that's especially important on the Spurs, as they've got him next to a pretty big lob target. I actually think most of his best playmaking reads come in the pick and roll though. He's not a guy who demands a ton of attention off of screens yet, but when he does create those rotations, he'll take advantage with some really nice passes. Take this play against the Hawks, for example. Nance is going to pick up the ball in a high drop, putting this defender in a situation where he has to cover both the roll and the corner. Castle looks to the corner to throw him off balance, then dumps it into Sohan down low. Then just a minute later, they set up basically the exact same play, except this time the low man fully commits to the paint, so Castle whips a fastball to the corner, resulting in a wide open three. Although, it's very important to note that when Castle gets deep into the paint on a drive and help comes late, he does tend to struggle with tunnel vision. Here's one where he actually catches the ball on a slip to the basket and Wemby's wide open in the corner. Castle misses him and instead tries to put Brook Lopez on a poster. These types of plays aren't uncommon. He has a tendency to launch himself into impossibly difficult shots at the rim, which is something I definitely expect to improve with experience. This especially stands out whenever his initial driving lane gets taken away and he's forced into a position where he has to score over the top. Usually when he gets cut off, he's looking to drop the shoulder and create some separation. And because he's such an explosive 2-foot leaper, he can use that space to vault himself to the rim. The only problem is that if he drops the shoulder and that defender either holds their ground or recovers, then he takes off. Now he's attempting a really tough shot. In my opinion, this is really the only thing holding him back from being an elite scorer at the rim. Again, using those last 15 games, he's attempting nearly 7 shots at the rim every 75 possessions and making an impressive 68.8% of them. If we go all the way back to 2001, the only guards to exceed both of those marks over an entire season were Tony Parker in 2006 and Dwayne Wade in 2013. By simply cleaning up the shot selection and looking for the kickout pass a bit more, I think Castle has the potential to become one of the most dangerous interior scorers in the league. Now, with all of that said, the swing skills that determine his ceiling all stem from those attacks where he isn't able to get all the way to the rim. As of right now, he doesn't really have anything he can go to that isn't a layup or a dunk. I think the most important addition would be a reliable floater. He already goes to the floater a decent amount, he just doesn't make many, and a reliable one would pair beautifully with the way he likes to drop the shoulder or stop on a dime, pretty much creating automatic separation. Another skill that could go a long way would be the addition of a reliable mid-range jumper. Because defenses know he's looking to get to the paint every time, they'll often sag off and leave him with space to shoot. And even just a 42% jumper would be such a nice counter. On a play like this where he turns the corner after a handoff and a big is parked under the basket, imagine if this was a consistent shot for him. In reality, those plays typically go like this, with a big sitting way back in a deep drop and him trying to attack that space by forcing the issue on a drive. I actually think a leap from the mid-range is a pretty reasonable development because if you watch how he operates right now, he already has a really good feel for when and where to pick his spots. Again, he likes to create contact and can stop on a dime, so something as simple as a bump midi looks pretty natural for him. It sounds kind of obvious, but the biggest and most important development for him is simply improving his touch. He can already create space for floaters and mid-range jumpers. What's lacking is the actual shot making. Touch is a tough thing to develop, but we've seen it before, and he doesn't need to be a great intermediate scorer, just enough to pair with the already high level slashing. Of course, the more limiting flaw in his game right now is the complete lack of a three-point shot, which allows defenses to get away with a lot of different coverages. Many teams have actually put big men on him to sag off and play the paint. A few days ago, the Celtics did it with Porzingis. 2 weeks ago, the Grizzlies did it with Jaren Jackson Jr. A few days before that, the Bucks did it with Brook Lopez. Just 2 days after, the Clippers did it with Ivica Zubac. And one thing I will say is that in all of these matchups, Castle didn't settle. Most guys would catch the ball right here, see Porzingis waiting in the paint, and decide to try the jumper anyways. Castle instead attacks aggressively, and although he doesn't finish, I really like that mindset. The Spurs have also implemented a few counters for whenever Castle does get matched up with a big. One thing they like to do is have one of their guards screen for the ball, leaving him with space to turn the corner and attack. Or they'll reverse the action and have Castle screen for the ball to pull that big man into the action, where he's actually pretty dangerous as a roller. For that reason, I'm a huge fan of the way they'll use inverted pick and rolls, with Castle setting a ball screen for Wemby. Victor's got the skill set of a very large guard, both as a shooter and as a passer, and with Castle's ability to finish at the rim, that puts the defense in some pretty tough spots. With that said though, Castle's lack of a three-point shot is most limiting when he's playing away from the ball and not involved in the primary action. So far in his rookie season, he's attempted about 200 threes and he's only made 28.9% of them, so he's the type of guy that defenses are more than comfortable leaving open. If he's on the wing, it's tough for ball handlers to drive down the middle because his defender will be parked at the nail without having to worry about making a tough closeout. Just look at this play. Scottie Pippen Jr. isn't worried about Castle at all and only cares about taking away the middle of the floor. Then when it gets moved to Castle, he doesn't even close out, just giving him the open three. We've seen players develop three-point shots before, so I won't say him becoming a somewhat reliable shooter is out of the realm of possibility, but it's pretty rare for a guy to go from being a legitimately poor outside shooter to even a decent one, so I'd say the development here relies more on growing his off-the-catch game and the Spurs finding different ways to utilize him away from the ball. He's got that super explosive first step and interior scoring, so I do think he can be really dangerous as a slasher out of the slot. I talked about how he can be used as a screener. He can also play out of the dunker spot due to his ability to finish off of 2 feet. And he's a good enough passer to connect the offense in different spots. Like on this play, Wemby draws 2, but doesn't see the open shooter in the corner. By getting the ball to Castle down low, he can make that extra pass for him, resulting in a wide open 3. So when it comes to the totality of his offensive game, there were definitely some growing pains, but he's starting to figure some stuff out and is now consistently producing results. As things currently stand, he's already a very good slasher in both the half court and the open floor, who can finish at the rim or get to the line. He's a pretty good passer, both on kickouts and interior finds, and he can be used as a play finisher or connector in a few different spots away from the ball. The most important areas for improvement, in my opinion, would be tightening up the handle a bit, keeping his head up on drives and looking for the pass more, working on his touch on both floaters and mid-range jumpers, then of course becoming a reliable three-point shooter. It's impossible to say whether or not he'll take these leaps and what that would look like, but even just a major improvement in 2 or 3 of these areas could completely change his ceiling. If I were forced to make a prediction, I'd say the likeliest improvements would be the improved vision and the addition of a reliable floater. And just those 2 things would make him such a dangerous slasher that he'd probably be capable of a second or third creator role on a contending team. What truly takes his game to the next level though, and makes him such an awesome player projecting forward, is what he also brings to the table defensively. He's the team's go-to point of attack defender, so he's the one who's always picking up the toughest backcourt matchup. He's not afraid to get aggressive and pick up players from as far out as half court, and he's able to get away with it because of how quick he is. Not only is he great at moving laterally, he has elite hip mobility, so he's able to stick with any set of moves from even the shiftiest guards and stay in between them and the basket. With that said though, I'd say his best defensive attribute is his ability to get over the top of screens and stay attached to his man, which isn't something you always see from a rookie. This starts away from the ball. Because he's so quick and so good at getting around screens, he's a guy who can outright deny his man the touch. Or he can at least make the touch more difficult. Like on this one, he jumps over the top of a cross screen, then when Jamal rejects it, he darts back under to chase him from behind. Jamal gets a handoff, only for Castle to beat him to the paint and shut off a drive. Of course, this ability to get over screens is most effective against pick and roll. As I said earlier, he's a guy who can stay attached to the ball, and thanks to that agility, he's consistently able to recover and protect the paint. So you'll get a lot of textbook high-level point of attack possessions from him, such as this one against Dame, where he runs him off the line, funnels him into Wemby, then recovers to get back in front of the ball. Speaking of which, the way he can just funnel the ball into Wemby makes his job so much easier, because when he gets over screens and plays from the hip, it takes a great rim protector to slow the drive, and Victor's the best in the game. So these two already have amazing chemistry defending the pick and roll. Castle will funnel the ball to Wemby, and if he's forced to pick up, then he'll peel into the passing lane to take away the big. And the Spurs actually do a ton of switching around Wemby. Anytime there's screening action and 2 of their wings are involved, they'll switch. Although, I will say, versatility as a man defender is definitely one of Castle's weaknesses for the time being. Whenever he gets matched up with bigger forwards or wings who like to play out of the mid-post, it's clear that he isn't nearly as effective. I think some of it is a lack of strength. He's not weak by any means, but as a rookie, he's yet to completely fill out his frame. In my opinion, it's more about his technique though, which is pretty easily fixable. When defending in the post as a smaller defender, you typically want to sit back into your heels and stand your ground. Castle has a tendency to get up on his toes and lean forward, which leaves him a lot more susceptible to bumps to the chest. You'll see the same thing happen against drives. It's not uncommon for wings to throw a little shoulder bump and throw him off balance, creating space in the mid-range. But look at how different it is on this play against Kawhi, where he's anticipating a bump to the chest and sits back on his heels. He absorbs the contact, holds his ground, and gets a hand up. As of right now, he's clearly more effective against 1s and 2s than against any other position. If he gets a little stronger and works on his technique against bumps, I think he can throw some 3s and 4s into the mix, which could honestly make him one of the best man defenders in the NBA. I'd already say he's one of the best point of attack guys against guards, and the determining factor of whether or not he'll take that next step rides on the development of his off-ball defense. He's not much of a playmaker at all, meaning that if he's not involved in an action, rarely ever will you see him force himself into the play and pick up steals, blocks, or deflections. And the reason this is somewhat problematic is because he has a serious tendency to watch the ball. You'll often see his man lose him with off-ball movement, so if he's not making a play, he's just a complete liability in these spots. Here's another example. After an offensive rebound, Monk finds himself on an island, and watch how long it takes Castle to recognize that he needs to make the rotation. By the time he realizes it's too late to get an effective contest, although he does get lucky with a miss. There was another spacey moment like that later in the same quarter. It starts with a really good on-ball rep where he chases Monk over a screen and forces him to get rid of it, only after the pass he sort of lingers in the paint while Monk relocates, and you can see CP3 telling him to go close out. He's again late and again gets a lucky draw. It's not like he's completely inept away from the ball. Every now and then you'll see him make a nice rotation to protect the paint, this time drawing an offensive foul, but another area in which I think he can improve is his positioning and timing as a rim protector, as he has the size, length, and most importantly the verticality to offer serious resistance. All things considered, I do think his on-ball defense is enough to make him a positive defender right now. However, he's still far from being an all-league caliber defender, which is where I project him to end up. With a little more switchability, more engagement and awareness away from the ball, and maybe getting more aggressive with his hands, he has the potential to end up as one of the best defensive guards in the league. So, what does that mean for his floor and ceiling as a player? Well, hypothetically, if he never meaningfully improves his touch or shooting ability, he'll always be a very limited offensive player. The slashing will have nice utility no matter what, but he'd be a fourth or fifth guy that actively hurts the spacing. And from that point of view, I think it'd be difficult to project him as anything more than a small positive. But with some of those improvements, he could effectively initiate offense for a playoff team and be lethal as an off-the-catch weapon, so we could be talking close to all-star territory. Then you get to the defense, where I'd say he can end up anywhere from a strong positive to an all-league caliber guy. Near all-star offense to go along with all-league caliber defense is a legitimate all-NBA type of player. Whether he gets there or not, only time will tell, but I see a pathway. He seems to improve with each and every game, and he's the ideal archetype you'd love to pair with Wemby long term, which makes it pretty easy to see why the Spurs didn't make him available in trade talks and why they value him as a franchise cornerstone. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Castle. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.